Just thought I would record this quick episode. I was asked to do a presentation for a class to share my experiences of why I got into career counseling. I thought it was a pretty dope concept, and I thought it was some good content to share with the listeners. If you're interested in a career in career coaching, career development, higher ed, etc., maybe check out this episode. Maybe it can answer some questions for you. If you have any questions about going into this field or about studying career counseling or anything like that, please feel free to reach out to me, host of Positive Philter, Philip Wilkerson. You can reach out to me via the inbox or text, or you could just hit me up on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. But please enjoy, and if you have any questions, hit me up. Welcome to Positive Philter with your host, Philip Wilkerson, a podcast that focuses on friends, family, health, and career with a little self-help around the way. Please join me in this journey for self-improvement, and I hope that what I have to share will make you a better person, thus making the world a better place. Okay, hey. So, I'm kind of going to record this and do a video, but this video is for, or recording is for the ED/CD 610 class or the career counseling class, which ironically I took part in about approximately about 9 years ago. And so, my friend, Dr. Carol, who I believe was a classmate of mine way back in the day in that counseling program, asked me to, make this video or recording for the students that are currently in that class to kind of just talk about my journey as a career counselor per se, and just how I was in their shoes at one point and how my life has kind of transformed since that class, and just kind of give some advice to the students of that class. And now that we know, I was going to talk in person, but as we know, COVID-19 happened, and so we're going to work with what the best we have, and I'm going to send a video, and additionally, if they want to listen to it, people like audio, I'm going to, record this and send this as a recording as well. So I'm just going to get into it and go through the questions that she sent me, and then just kind of go from there, kind of freestyle it a little bit. See if that's helpful to anyone. All right, so the number one question: what led you to become a career counselor? Is it the path that you always envisioned yourself? So I love this question because the quick answer is absolutely not. I could give you the short version or the long version. I'll probably give you the condensed version. But when I graduated college from James Madison University, I had a history degree. I did not know what I wanted to do at all. Was very I didn't go to the career center, which is so funny that I'm working in career counseling. I didn't get help or anything. And so I luckily got a job at a school with children with special needs in Alexandria, Virginia, through a friend of mine. And it was in that job that I realized I wanted to work with people. I wanted to work with school in a school system. I wanted to work with kids. But I didn't know where to look. I knew I wanted to be a school counselor, but not a classroom traditional teacher. So I just Googled school counseling programs, and luckily for me, Mason popped up. And one of the reasons why I went to Mason, and this is not to oversimplify it or think I'm a rocket scientist, it had no GRE requirement. So I applied, and I luckily for me, I got in, not knowing how life transforming that program was going to be for me. I was just doing it because it was local. I grew up in the area. I wasn't a good test taker, and they let me have an interview. And I figured that if I had an opportunity to do an interview, I'd get into the program. And luckily for me and for all the people that saw me interview, they gave me a shot. Shout out to Dr. Chung and Dr. B. Mack. They saw something in me and they let me in the program. And then, throughout the program, I kind of faced a little bit of imposter syndrome, not feeling like I belonged in counseling. a counseling program. I didn't have a background in counseling. I didn't study something related to counseling. I remember people would go around the room and introduce yourself, and I remember I would say I was a history major, and people would say, "What? History? Why you're in this program?" And so I kind of was like really at a loss. And then I realized that I didn't want to be a school counselor. I wanted to switch over to community agency, the different track, because it led me to more opportunities. But kind of fast forward, it was this class, the 610 class, that changed my life. I was in that class. It was taught by Professor Dr. Talleyrand, and going through all the different exercises and practicing and talking about theories, Browns, and values, and all those different things. I was really digging it. And I was really feeling. I was like, wow, this is awesome. This class really holds my interest more than all the other counseling classes. And I was like, wow, this is great. And it was also helpful for me because all the exercises that we would try, narrative, or doing your roles and all those things, I was trying it for myself, and I was like, wow, this is helpful for me. I love to do this with other people. And we had a guest speaker, which is crazy because now I'm kind of your guest speaker now, by the name of Ken Garant. And he came in our class, and he, did a resume review with us, and he talked about career counseling at the higher ed level. And I was like, wow, that's it. Literally a light bulb went off my head. And he said, and by the way, we have a internship at George Mason Career Services. For any student studying counseling, we provide you an internship so that you can get your hours. And I was like, that's it. No other place. I want to do my internship at Career Services. And so luckily for me, I was ambitious, annoying, whatever you want to call it. And so I emailed, I did an informational interview with Ken. I did a site visit. I walked around. I was like this, and Ken was like, man, stop. You got the internship. Stop bothering me. And unbeknownst to me, he became like a mentor. He became a friend. He became someone that guided me. And that was when I was like, this is what I want to do. I want to do career counseling, but most specifically, I also wanted to stay in higher ed. It was like, that's it. I want to stay at a college campus. And so I never really imagined this. I never pictured this. What I believe was, like, I love the movie Forrest Gump. And one of the lines out of that was, he doesn't know if we have a purpose or if we're just like a feather floating in the wind. And I kind of believe in that too. I don't know my plan. I don't know my plan for my life. I like to be planned and strategic when it can be, but sometimes things just happen, and events happen. Whether you're a person of faith or not, there's this grand plan that we all have, that we all fit into, and then sometimes, whether that plan is known to us or not, we just kind of float into things. And so I believe I kind of floated into this space and this occupation. But no, I definitely did not envision being a career person or career coach or whatever you want to call it. I didn't picture myself working in higher ed. I didn't picture myself anything beyond, getting a job. So that's the question one. What is the most challenging aspect of your job? I would say the most challenging aspect of my job right now, I got a lot of ideas. I'm an idea person. Sometimes I act, I'm very impulsive, and I act before I think. And I have to realize one of the most challenging things is that no matter what organization ideas that you have, you work in a system. Unless you work for yourself, unless you're your own business or whatever, and even in that, even as an entrepreneur, you're working in a system of capitalism or whatever. But in regards to higher ed, you still have to adhere to the boundaries of professionalism, but also that some of the things, whether it's resources, budget, money, there's a system. And whether you have these great ideas, they sound really good on paper, sometimes they just can't be executed. And it's out of your control. You try to just work with what you have, be as resourceful as you can. But I think that's one of the challenging things that I have is, like, I got all these ideas. I'm an idea person, but also I got to realize that sometimes I have to dial back my ideas to work within a system or to be organized. I feel as though people might feel more comfortable seeking out career counseling than individual therapy. if they seek out career counseling and then start to reveal some insights that don't align with career counseling, but more likely addressed in individual therapy, how do you handle those? So as we know, life and stresses, work can, the anxieties of trying to get a job and all that stuff could be concurrent with a lot of things. Or we know that nothing is isolated. If you're, meeting with someone with substance abuse, there's trauma and all these, everything's linked, right? We're holistic people. But at the same time, you're right. As a career professional at Mason, my duty is to focus on the professional realm. So if a student indicates, or someone I'm working with, I guess you say client, is indicating more severe mood disorders or suicide ideation or ideation of self-harm, that's beyond my scope of my job duties, right? So what I task everyone to do that's listening is just know the resources that you have that are the professionals, document everything, and then be comfortable even in your career counseling sessions to bring up those issues, but then pass them off. So for instance, if I hear someone that's, saying things like it's hopeless, there's no hope for me, this is the end of it, I ask them questions like, what I'm hearing is hopelessness and this, do you have any thoughts to harm yourself, or are you okay? And if that person indicates that they're not okay, then I need to be comfortable to say, okay, well, I believe that, I would be comfortable not letting you leave this session. Would you mind being, I'll walk you over to CAPS or counseling, and you see someone right now, or sometimes I even had to call the police to make sure that person was escorted to a hospital or somewhere safe. So it's just knowing the resources on campus, asking those questions, documenting that, protecting, not only protecting yourself, but protecting that person, not letting them leave your office with those, just go out there in the world with issues that they got going on. So you just got to kind of be comfortable with the uncomfortable conversations. And so that's how I kind of address that, and just know the resources. There's so many resources. Whether a student has been sexually assaulted, you have to be comfortable about being mandated to report that, and have that student report it, using Title IX or whatnot, and just students indicating that they have food insecurity, knowing that there's a service on campus, the SSAC, or student services advocacy. No, I can't. I'm sorry, I'm murdering it. But SSAC, which is an advocacy to make sure they have a food pantry. So a lot of issues come up in career counseling that are outside your realm, but you just know the resources on campus and connect those students with those things. And if you're out there in the community doing career counseling, making sure that you just have a Rolodex of licensed professionals that you can refer people to. You're kind of like your go-to resources, your resource log, knowing the phone numbers, hotlines, all those different things. Just kind of having that Rolodex ready to go. How do you use social justice and multiculturalism to advocate for your clients? Now, I love this. Being a person of color myself, identities is a big part, and identities show up in career counseling as well, right? We bring our best selves to work. And I also think about, when I talk to students, I think I try to put on their mindset that they need to think strategically about where they look for jobs and whether that job is going to let them bring themselves to work. So, whenever I'm doing practice interview questions, I always ask a student to ask the employer, what is that employer's commitment to diversity and inclusion? If an employer doesn't have a good answer to that, they're like, oh, we got a token black guy. I would tell them to think long and hard about, is that a place you want to work at? And thinking about going to a space that honors that diversity and inclusion, has programs, has safe spaces for people of different populations. And then in general, in my job right now, just making sure that you seek out opportunities, whether it's in your job or outside your job, to foster advocacy and social justice. So for instance, in our office at Career Services, we have diversity groups where everyone participates in separate identity groups to make sure that we are providing services to students by different populations, whether it's first generation students or students with certain disabilities or neurodiverse students. But then also, in addition to making sure that we are on board and continuously educating ourselves on how we help people with different identities, is also service. So, for instance, outside of my job, I am the faculty advisor for the NAACP on campus, the photography club, which is very diverse from students from all over the world, and the Iota Alpha chapter of Alpha Phi Alpha, which is a historically black fraternity. And so I make sure that beyond the 9 to 5 of my job, I'm still seeking opportunities to help groups and populations that are marginalized or have, marginalized or minority students on campus, advocate for them, be their voice, be their adult voice on campus, make sure I mentor them, give them guidance, just be kind of like a friend. And I don't know, just seek out opportunities, go to trainings, go to things like that. And it's I would say it's unavoidable, right? Like at every aspect, whether you're in the school system, you're a school counselor or whatever, multicultural and social justice is going to show up at some form or fashion. And now, whether it shows up in direct confrontation with, racist issues or homophobic, like issues that you have to combat systematically, or taking initiative and doing things on your own, or also just pre-existing mentorship or activities that are speaking to those, make sure that you just prioritize that and put that as something that you include in your day-to-day at some point, somehow. All right. How would you describe your career path into the counseling profession? I think it kind of leads to the first question that was asked, but as I said earlier, random, going with the moment, open to new experiences, asking for help. I know if we did a survey, I don't know how many people when they were, I would say preteens, woke up one day and said, when I grow up, I'm going to be a school counselor or any kind of counselor. I don't think it's like one of those like daydream occupations that kids have, like firefighters, police officers. I think it's something that people kind of fall into, whether what I've heard a lot of my classmates or peers had is they had a really good or bad experience. Maybe they had a really good counselor, or they had issues, or a therapist, and it made them want to help someone else. Or maybe they had a really bad person and they said, I'm going to go into that field and change it, So for me, I had none. I didn't have a really bad experience with career counseling, or because I didn't go to any, and I didn't have a really good one. But I definitely had people that guided me, and then I think the people that were in those spaces, I was able to look up to them, and they made it comfortable, and they made me want to do it. Like as I said earlier, Ken Garant, I don't know, he probably minimized his impact on me, but if he was a mean person, I probably would have had a totally different trajectory on my career. But because he was so welcoming and helping and willing to, guide me as my internship coordinator at Career Services, it made me really open to the experience. It was really supportive, and it made me say, this is what I want to do. So kind of think about that too when you go out in the world, is that you might be someone's first interaction with that occupation, and you can make or break that person's experience and maybe make people want to be a counselor because you're such a good counselor. And I would say that's kind of what happened to me, is that I wanted to be in this field because I believed, the people that were ahead of me were so kind, and I felt like I could do it too. So that's why that kind of led me, that was my path. And as I said earlier, it's all random but orchestrated, right? You meet people you're supposed to meet people that you meet. You're supposed to take the classes that you're supposed to take. Things happen, make connections in your classes. I still keep in touch with my professors. I still keep in touch with my classmates. Still keep in touch with a lot of people on campus because those relationships mean something to me, and you never know what opportunities they bring up. What are employers looking for in their top candidates? So I guess in regards to this profession, counseling, I would say, and this is what I learned, is data, the ability to research, and the ability to prove something. Everything's about proof and numbers. So regardless of any field, whether you're a school counselor or you're a career counselor, it's all data. Like, how many students quantified, right? What was, surveys? Did they like it or not like it? Did they get better or not? So, like, no matter what, you have to always continuously prove yourself. You always have to have numbers. You always have to show your worth through data. And sometimes it's boring, but I would say for anyone going into the field, the ability to write, the ability to present, the ability to do presentations, but the ability to gather numbers and then present on those numbers or write about those numbers. Those will be things that they'll make you separate you from, your classmates. I think additionally, another thing that I would say is building up your network, informational interviews, learn individual stats about whatever space you're going to. So if you're going to Mason, know diversity numbers, know the programs that they're already doing, do your research on any place that you're gonna look for, and come with it, like come with a previous knowledge of that place, so it sounds like you did your due diligence to know about them, and just be able to confidently share what you've done in the past and how that's illustrated. So I think that's what employers are looking for, and just like be able to sell yourself with your interview, like be able to tell stories, be able to tell your experiences, whether you're in your internships, and translate those internships to the questions that they're asking. Like, tell me a time you had to work with a difficult client. Pull that experience when you had a difficult person in your internship. Take us through that story. What was the results? What was the impact? I think that will separate you from the pack. What surprised you on the job that you didn't learn in grad school and lessons learned? I learned no matter what occupation, it's not like, if you think being a counselor is only like what you think in TV shows, you sit on the couch and you ask questions and you process, that's like only like a small percentage. Majority of what you do is administrative stuff, paperwork, emails, event planning events, programs, just stuff that was not just counseling. Like, I remember I used to love just doing the presentations and the one-on-one appointments, but Ken was like, Phil, you got to know bigger than that. You got to know how to like do an initiative or start a new program. And then after you start the new program, analyze it and then prove that it was a good program to keep going. Or like do an event. I feel like every person that works in higher ed has some form or fashion, or in counseling in some form or fashion, is an event planner, and you have to plan events. So think about that. Think about the non-counseling skills that are transferable to work, which is presentations, writing, research, event planning, delegation of tasks, team leading. You're not all, normally, even though you want to do one-on-one counseling or whatever, or group counseling, whatever, you're still not going to work alone. You might have to supervise others. So, like those things I didn't really think about in grad school. I thought, hey man, we just talking about feelings and talking about processing and doing all these fun exercises. Well, that's like only like, I don't know, 20%, 10% of what you do. A lot of it's, you got way more things outside of appointments than you think. And then any tips for those who may want to integrate career counseling into their counseling process? Just know that the career aspect is so intertwined with people's well-being that, people get laid off from a job and that gives them anxiety and depression. I mean, how we view work in the world of work is so intertwined with our psyche and psychological well-being that no matter what, in any form or fashion, regardless of services, you could be working in a jail and doing counseling rehab. You can be working with alcoholics and drug addicts. Somewhere, form or fashion, jobs and employment is going to come up. Like a guy that's an addict can't hold a job. You're going to talk about that process of getting clean to get a job. A teen that's acting out. Maybe you're going to talk about what they want to do for the future, and it's somewhere they're hopeless and they need to talk about their goals and stuff. So I think that just knowing that you don't need to be a professional, you don't need to have like do like a whole niche and be the pro and Resume Review Pro and LinkedIn Pro, but just know in some form or fashion, career is going to come up in some aspect of helping others. And also just be comfortable, additionally, if it's beyond your realm, knowing the resources that are around you, knowing the counselors or the career help resources, resume people, I don't know those around you so that you can still focus on the processing of actual emotions and but also know how to help people. So I would just like to leave with this, is that one of the things is when you leave this class, I'll be honest with you, I remember Brown's values or Jung. I can't remember all the names. I'll be totally transparent with you. There's never been a time where I'm like, oh yeah, I'm going to use this counseling theory. It's not on the forefront. Obviously, the main things that I actively think about and that I really took from my counseling program, it was the social justice, the call for advocacy, the call for equality and beating down systems of oppression. So that's something that's regardless that came from this counseling program that you guys are in right now. Or additionally, that the basic counseling skills go a long way. Like don't oversimplify and think it's stupid. Or active listening. I use it all the time. Turn my brain off. Turn my mouth off. Listen more. Really try to think about actively listening to people. In the counseling session, look for nonverbals. And bring those up. One of the things I remember, I can't remember whose theory it was, but just literally talk about the experience. Like, I noticed that you hesitated on that answer, or your hands are shaking. What's going on? I can't remember the theory about that, but be okay with living in the moment, in the present, and bringing it up in whatever session you're doing. And then also paraphrasing. I use that so much to get clarity. I think it's one of the undervalued basic counseling skills that you'll use in career is say, what I heard is, and, repeat back what someone said to you to get clarity. I use that. I use that in everyday life. Like, so what I'm hearing is this, and this. Really, really hold back. You're not going to need to know all these theories forever, but really, really hold on to those counseling skills, the practice, the rapport building, listening, asking questions, following up, having a unconditional positive regard of people, even if they get on your nerves, being friendly, and understand that for some people in that space, especially in a vulnerable space around career or whatnot, or career or feelings, that you may be that person's first and maybe only instincts with counseling. So you have to show up with the mindset that if they're not going to see anyone else again, that if they went out into the world with the one moment that we had together, I did the best I could. I tried to help them the best I could. And, what happens out there in the world happens out there in the world. But I know I put my best self forward, and I tried to help the best I could. I hope those answered some questions. I don't know if they did or not. One of the things I said is career services does offer an internship to the counseling students continuously. So if you have any questions, feel free to hit me up about that. My email is pwilkerson3@gmail.com. Or I'll share that email out, or the professor will share that out. Never be afraid to ask questions. Always go with new experiences. Never think that you have to be an expert. Figure it out as you go along, and things will work out. So thank you. I hope this video wasn't too boring. I hope it was sufficient, and talk to you later. Okay, bye-bye. Thank you for listening to Positive Philter, a podcast that focuses on family, friends, career, with a little self-help along the way. If you enjoyed this podcast, please share it with your family and friends, and like the Facebook page, Spreading Positivity of Movement. Thanks for listening.